Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Feed and Focus for Remote Work and Digital Nomads podcast. My name is Angela Sharina, digital nomad for more than 11 years, really passionate about this location, independent, free, and global lifestyle living. I'm also a nutrition, health, brain productivity coach who enjoys working with digital nomads, entrepreneurs, remote workers. And today I'm super pumped and excited to introduce you to someone who really is doing something amazing and significant in the space in the world of digital nomads. Johannes, the guest of today's episode, he's passionate and he's intentional about building communities that are more permanent and lasting communities for digital nomads, for people who spend a lot of time in many locations. Johannes is passionate about helping people with this nomadic lifestyle to build lasting connections, deeper relationships that last, right? I think he's trying to kind of help us to have it all, the adventures, the travels, the freedom, but also not missing out on those beautiful connections that we all human beings need. Johannes, who I'm also very pumped to introduce you to Johannes and his work. He's one of the people who were at the very beginnings of digital nomad movement. We didn't even have the word back then, like digital nomad. We didn't even know the word, right? It was hard to connect. So Johannes was there at the beginning, and his struggles led him to start building these communities for digital nomads. You learn all about how Johannes' journey began, and then what challenges he faced in his business, in his relationships. We'll talk about what it even means to be a digital nomad and how it's compared to being an expert or just seasonal traveler. Like, what does it mean to be a digital nomad? What are some challenges with work, with business? How do you maintain focus on building something business-wise when you travel all the time, right? How do you maintain your health and fitness and productivity and your mental health? All of these things, relationships, right? That's like the main focus of Johannes' work. How do you do all of that being a digital nomad? So Johannes will share his journey and his lessons and insights. And we'll talk about the concept of the grass is always greener on the other side, why sometimes people start their nomadic journey and how people at the beginning of the journey are different from long-term nomads, right? It's a really beautiful, warm, insightful conversation where through personal story and journey of Johannes' business and personal, you'll learn so much more about digital nomad life and the good things and challenging things, and it will help you to start your journey, to continue your journey in a more intentional and deeper and lasting and meaningful way. So without further ado, please stay tuned, tune in, and enjoy our conversation of Johannes Faulkner. I probably butchered his last name, but that was one beautiful, insightful conversation. So stay tuned and you'll be amazed in what nomadic journey can be. Johannes, welcome to your Feed and Focus for Remote Work and Digital Nomads podcast. So happy to have you on the podcast. To be honest, I wanted to interview you for a while because you are a fascinating person in the digital nomad world. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here today.
Yeah, so to give our listeners a little bit of a background, how I got to know you, I spoke at one of the events that community that you were building organized, now known as Nomad Based. And I think before it was Nomad Cruise, right?
Yes, in the past we organized a cruise until
Mm-hmm.
COVID came, and then we kind of pivoted the project to a new project that's called Nomad Base.
Mm-hmm. So tell our listeners a little bit more about like how did you start your digital nomad journey? You seem to be in it for quite a while. You know, I read on one of the website, I think it's called Web Work Travel,
Yeah.
that you started many, many years ago, right? And then, and well, I'll just let you, tell the story, how it all started and how you're now here managing, I think, one of the biggest digital nomad communities, right?
Yes. So the way how I started is like I started it when I didn't know the name. I just wanted to travel and work, and basically I read the 4 Work Week in 2008 when I
Mm-hmm.
was living in South Africa. And that book inspired me basically to find work online already in 2008 because I was living at that time with my fiance in South Africa. So I wanted to just live there. That was my whole goal, but it was very difficult to earn any money there. And so I, yeah, basically that's how I get started. I was looking for business ideas, and I found the 4 Work Week, which was just released
Mm-hmm.
at that time, which is quite a lot of nomads have read this book. It's not really about just working 4 hours a day, but it's a little bit about organizing your life differently. And for me, it was the goal to, the kickstart to just find some work online, really,
Mm-hmm.
because it was so difficult to find anything in South Africa. So I started in 2008, built virtual assistant business, and then online
Mm-hmm.
marketing, and then e-commerce business, and eventually that relationship fell apart in Cape Town. And
Mm-hmm.
so from 2010, at the end of 2010, I decided that I'm not going to stay in Cape Town anymore, and I ended up going to my first digital nomad destination, which was Boracay in the
Where
Philippines.
is it? Okay.
In the Philippines. And I just went there for 2 months of kite surfing. It was a little test. It worked well. So I just went back to Germany for 1 week. And then I ended up being 10 months traveling all over South America on my second thing. I flew there,
Mm-hmm.
didn't know any Spanish at that time. And I traveled all the way from Buenos Aires, pretty overland to Brazil, to northern Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
and then later went to Costa Rica and things. And then I was kind of in the zone. But one thing that I really missed, and this is the reason why I'm started all these projects and stuff, is that when I did it, I hardly met any other digital nomads. So there was nobody else who was doing it around. There were about 4 blogs who were writing about this topic when I started to research this. And I just wanted to connect to other people who were also living this kind of life. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I started later. I wrote a travel guide for people who work online, which was 2 years before Nomad List actually came up,
Mm-hmm.
and which included a lot of destinations which are now actually quite well known on the Nomad radar. And then I started the first Facebook group for digital nomads, which grew really rapidly. And then I thought, okay, we need a place not just connect online, but we need to meet in real life. And then I stumbled across the idea of the Nomad Cruise. So I had the
Yeah,
idea.
what was it like? Yeah, the first experience, Nomad Cruise.
Yeah, so the thing was that at that time, this Facebook group that I had started had about
Mm-hmm.
5,000 digital nomads. It felt kind of everyone in the whole nomad scene knew each other. And basically, what happened was that, we all wanted to meet in different places, but there were just some places in Thailand, and Bali was just like kind of coming up at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And and then I saw that there was a cruise ship that was going from Spain to Brazil, and I wanted to spend the winter in Brazil anyways to go there for kiting.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, like, wow, this would be amazing if we jump on this cruise ship. We can do a little bit of networking, and when we arrive in Brazil, we don't need to start from scratch at every destination we go, because we're kind of bringing already a community there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what I saw, and the cruise was not very expensive, and so I thought like, okay, let me post and see if anyone else wants to come along.
Reminds me of Richard Branson, how he started his Virgin
Huh?
Airlines. Reminds me of Richard Branson, how he started his airline. Like,
Yeah, he
who
also
wants to join?
had that right. Yes. And and so we had over 100 people who booked that same trip
Wow.
where we met, and basically then we went to Brazil. We went to some place. We had a little reunion in Jericoacoara, which is like a little amazing town that I think a lot of nomads are going to start talking about over the next years.
Mm.
Amazing place in northern Brazil, and so we went there, and then we met again in Rio de Janeiro for New Year's Eve, and the idea kind of we got a lot of attention. It was featured in the press as well, in big German newspapers and stuff. And then just 6 months later, we had
Mm-hmm.
next trip that was going from Colombia to Lisbon with 200 people already. And so
Okay.
I was not prepared at all to run something like this. But in the end, like now I found out some ways to do it.
Mm-hmm. 200 people. Yeah, it's like the whole ship. No, for me,
No,
it's
no,
hard to
no.
imagine.
It was for 2000, but we have some private venues on the ships as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's, kind of you stumbled upon this idea, right? Just decided to try it out. Back then, when you seem to, like at the beginning of your journey, I think 2010, 2011, I was starting my own like digital nomad journey, but I didn't even know the name of it. So I wouldn't even look, for
Yeah.
those people. I'm like, I just work online,
Yeah.
who do I look for? So I can so totally relate. And at that time, I think I spent almost 3 years in Thailand. But yeah, I am, familiar with that idea that you kind of like want to connect with people, but you're not sure how and who. At least you knew the name. I didn't.
I didn't know the name. I basically the way how I stumbled across the word, for example, digital nomad,
Yeah.
was I was on the beach in Costa Rica, and I was
Mhm.
like, I always had this idea it would be great to have like a freelancer hostel, a hostel where
Mhm.
freelancers can meet. Because I was like a backpacker before, I had already traveled like 60 countries at that time. And
Mhm.
so what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a freelancer hostel. But I didn't want to go to one place and start a hostel because I wanted to travel, right? So
Mhm.
I wanted to build something that would be a foundation for this hostel one day.
Mhm.
And when I was on this beach in Costa Rica, I was walking there, and I remember this because then I was like, I need to write a guide for people where to go.
Mhm.
And so I got this, and when I started to write this guide and to think about it, that's in that research, I found out that there's the digital nomad, like that this,
Okay.
but there were only 2 blogs writing about digital nomads
Yeah.
at the time. So it was not even defined. And then people were like, yeah, no, it's not cool anymore. Like it's not the right word. And there was like a lot of discussions on this, like whether this is good or not. And then
Mhm.
other people started to talk about location independent lifestyle and
Mhm.
different wording for the same thing, really. And so that's how I found out, because I was researching for this guide, which destinations to put in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how it grew, right? Like 10, 12 years later, and it's a common thing that you would read in like regular newspaper everywhere. And I read somewhere that, I don't know, by 2030 or something, like 1 billion people will identify themselves with like digital nomad term. And for me, that's like mind blowing, because if you have, 1 billion people,
Mm.
then the infrastructure going to change completely to
Well,
accommodate
I
that
will
person.
add here that I think that this is a reference to one talk that Peter Levels made at Peter Levels from Nomadlist made at the Digital Nomad Conference, and it
Mm-hmm.
was just like at the very very beginning where we were, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not really sure how he got the number, but I think it's funny because this term then afterwards, it was just like kind of taken up everywhere, and one person heard it somewhere, and then it's always like in that time there will be 1 billion people, but it was really just one sentence at the conference. But we'll see. Maybe he's right.
Yeah, we'll see. And I think what's also makes it maybe, I don't know, maybe this number is underestimated because a lot of people these days they work remotely, but they don't necessarily identify themselves as digital nomads because, for them, like digital nomad is a person who always travels, who's always switching locations, not necessarily having a base at all. So what does it mean for you to be a digital nomad? Do you always travel? Like, is it your ideal situation when you're always changing spaces? Do you have a base? And also maybe how did COVID change the whole idea?
So I want to also say, like, I mean, I think the definition of, or saying that there would be 1 billion people in the future who are digital nomads, is very important to how to define it, right? Because in my opinion, I mean, I'm not really sure, so now I'm just speaking what I think right now, right? But what actually, I mean, it's kind of a term that we use for someone who sometimes changes the location, right? But shall we say that a digital nomad is someone who changes the location every 2 years? When is a digital nomad like an expat, right?
Yeah.
So what exactly is the difference between a digital nomad and an expat? If we are kind of extending this period of time, like how often do you change your location? And we would say, like, okay, so everyone who changes at least once a year the location, I think then there would be a lot of people who are doing this, but not everyone. Or I mean, then there's a lot of nomads who have a home base and then they just travel after for the winter time, right? Like that. A lot of people are just going away for 2-3 months every winter. They also then wouldn't call themselves digital nomads, but they travel like it. So it's super hard to define for myself. I mean, I would say that I'm not really actually traveling that much anymore. Like I mean, compared to many other people, I do travel a lot. But I try to be in places for 2-3 months, and then just do something nice in between, add some trips in between. But if I go to like a real destination, I want to go a little bit longer. But in a way, I kind of also like to go back to places that I really like and then mix in new experiences.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for your definition. For me, I never really, got a definition. For me, I am a total gypsy. Like, I don't have a base right now. I don't consider any place on earth to be my base. Right. And, so I think I totally identify with the word nomad, digital or not, because for me, it's how my life has been for the past more than 11 years now. Right. But I meet a lot of people who also say they're digital nomads, but then they just, travel sometimes, don't travel other times. A lot of people I meet, they have home base and then they just travel often. And also, I think for a lot of people, the definition depends on how you work. Like if you can take your work anywhere in the world and be nomadic, then people call themselves
that's a good one
nomads.
to do as well, to say as well, right? Like if it's online work, and you're doing it for more than 1 month a year, then you are also one nomad, or I don't know.
Yeah. Well, thinking, I also think that if somebody has a business that is established in one location, but they don't have to be there, like it's true business, you just kind of have it and it's managed by other people, but you can be anywhere. That also, I think, you can be a digital nomad, right?
Yeah.
Just something I thought about. So you were traveling and then pandemic happened, right? So obviously all the cruises, etc., and travel, it kind of got stopped. So what happened to your travels, to lifestyle, to nomad cruise at that point, and what it evolved into?
So we were just planning a trip that was going also from Colombia to Lisbon, and we had to cancel that because of COVID. And at that time, I had a little home base in Mallorca. I was only traveling like 6 months of the year, and I was based there. And basically, what I did then was that I first focused on some other things, some other e-commerce business for a few months because I saw there was more opportunity, and I wanted to, yeah, get back a little bit the cash that I was about to lose in the
Yeah.
time when I couldn't do this. Yeah, so and then I started to think quite quickly about what else we can do, and there were some other ideas that I had around nomads. I mean, we just organized a cruise that was just a 2-week event, and I mean, what I realized for the nomads is that it is super difficult to keep in touch with like your community or with the people that you meet on your trip. And because we are always creating a community, and I saw these always fading out, I want to build something that keeps people more and longer together and connected. And that's why we started then, after like a few different community starts, we started with Nomad Base. And simply the reason is that we want to build a nomad community that is not just, very temporary. When you go to, let's say, Bali, you stay there for 2 months, then you're leaving again. And most likely all the people that you met there, you're never going to see again in your life. And with this one, we want to go to places with a lot of people and keep in touch. And so we are making a few more events besides like a cruise, right, where we have conferences in different places around the world, and you kind of use that as a base and then explore these areas together. Because basically the nomad life is it's nice, but what I am missing is that you have any stable relationships with other nomads, because there are so many destinations right now. I mean, in the past it was easy. You would just go to Chiang Mai, Lisbon, or Bali, or Medellin, and that's where you would meet kind of always people that you know. But now there's like 20 new destinations as well that are quite popular. So it's very difficult to actually keep in touch. And then some people just do it for 1 year, some do it for much longer. And it's just exhausting. To wherever you go, you start with the same conversations. So what I'm trying to do is, when people want to be nomad, it doesn't matter whether it's 2 months of the year or the full year, that they can kind of keep in touch with one community that has got similar values and is supportive of each other. It's the whole goal behind the Nomad Base thing that we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a common issue for everyone, like who identify themselves as nomad, who has this lifestyle to maintain and build long-term relationships, right? And creating a solution for that's, tricky and challenging, because by definition, you're a nomad, you kind of like all over the place, right? But still want to have connections. At the same time, you don't want to commit necessarily to a lot of places. And that's a challenge.
One interesting thing is, actually, we just made a survey with our members, and we realized that half of the members inside our community have been nomads for more than 3 years. So it's actually quite interesting, because I think that we all kind of stumble across these issues that we're having, that we just have a massive network. I mean, there are some nomads where we have 2,000 common Facebook friends, and it's nice, but it's just way too much. And it's not that it's way too much. It's good, right? If you need anything, you just need to think a little bit, like, who can I ask about this? But the problem is that you're not really building like real relationships or real collaboration or whatsoever. And for example, for people to work together on a business, support each other, it takes a little bit more than knowing each other for 2 weeks. And so we are kind of trying to bring that a long-term collaboration and working together and stuff. And that requires a little bit more than just one event per year.
Yeah, definitely. Deeper relationships, they do require kind of ongoing maintenance, right? And some sort of interaction and doing something together. So do you have I don't know, ideal future for what that community or solution for building long-term connections and relationship could look like? Maybe what do you have now and what do you see it evolving into?
So what we are working on right now is we are also setting up, it's called like chapters. Well, I mean, there's a different definition for chapters, but basically the world is so big and it's so hard to keep in touch. But I mean, based on the people that I know and my own travels, we are selecting some places that will be the meetup points for the community and where we also recommend to go during certain times of the year. So it's very, very easy to, in a way, sometimes travel, but also keep in touch with everyone and not waste 3 weeks or 1 month to even build up your own a little social network when you get to places, but kind of arrive there and knowing some people and then also getting in touch with the locals and these things as well. But basically it's a lot will revolve around these meeting points that we are having around the world. And these meeting points are, on the one hand, some very well-known nomad hotspots, but on the other hand, there are like really amazing, incredible places where there's no nomads at all, but where that offer extreme uniqueness and and just the so taking advantage of the possibility, right, that we can travel and that we can see the world, but oftentimes we don't want to go to certain areas because we don't know anyone there, or we don't want to again start from scratch. So this is what we need to make a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Me personally, it reminds of co-living that I used to live in London, where it's basically one building, right? Kind of like a huge village in one building with all the facilities. And people who would live there, they usually travelers, digital nomads, and staying in London more, I think, shorter term, like they're not yet, decided where they're going to be, and they usually work online, etc. And so for me, like when I think of London, I always think of this place as where I can go, and I know I'm going to meet people who I already know, who I already have relationships, connections, right? I also think that in the future, it might be great, to have those locations, and also maybe physical spaces where people, could stay together, work together, etc. And that just makes things so much easier. Yeah, you build connections, but also infrastructure. You don't have to think about that many things like, renting an apartment and figuring that stuff out, or, or your workspace, your internet, etc. Because, I don't know if you experience that personally, but for me, when I travel to a new destination, I'm like hyper focused on figuring out what's the ideal spot where internet is good, where you have all the infrastructure, from groceries to like co-working to all the things that you need to do. And that takes quite a lot of planning. You need to read reviews and connect to other people, etc. And be sure that you arrive in the place where you can stay, where you can work, where you can do everything. Otherwise, you end up wasting, a lot of time and money and energy.
That's so the physical places is like a more long-term goal to have this in a few places, but also what we want to do is we want to find partners in these destinations. So there are already many amazing co-living spaces and stuff, but some of them, they don't have such a big network like we do. So we can actually help them, and promote them like this as well. Or just find a great hotel that is really perfectly suitable and that offers like good monthly deals. So there's many options, but yes, I agree. The problem is always to get started, and then like you're thinking like, okay, I know some people who are going to Buenos Aires, so I'm going there too. And then everyone lives in a different suburb 1 hour away from each other, and it's not really the ideal thing. So we want to kind of make it a little bit easier for those who want to keep in touch to do it, and those who want to go on their own and just have this for 2 months of the year, that it's also like valid for them to be a member still, even if they don't want it all year round.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and you're gonna figure it out, trying different things. I'm just, I'm rooting for you because I need that too whenever I go somewhere, to save me
Yeah.
time and energy and not just again finding the infrastructure, but also of course people and
Yeah.
relationships. That's a huge factor of well-being. Um, so besides, you're now like building communities, building, that part of infrastructure for relationships, connections, for digital nomads. Um, Personally, while doing all these travels, while living this lifestyle, did you find other maybe challenges besides, building relationship that you could share with our listeners and maybe share, your lessons, your experiences of the lifestyle. So if people are starting
Mm.
out or,
Mm.
having issues, they could learn from that. Like, and that can be anything, from health to work to focus to productivity,
Yeah.
like anything at all.
So I think one thing that I've spent, there are two things, I think. The one thing that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, and I'm not really 100% sure how to actually maybe even do it, one is that when you're traveling, like let's say I'm in Rio de Janeiro today, and I've been working on a certain project, and now I'm going to Medellin, and I
Mm-hmm.
take a plane and I fly there. Very often, I have lost kind of the project that I was working on. Like I've lost the focus, and I'm like in
Mm-hmm.
a completely new zone now, and I stopped thinking about what I was actually working on before. So I think it's super difficult to kind of, for example, build a company when you're
Mm-hmm.
traveling to a new destinations all the time, because you're losing the focus when you're jumping from one destination to the next. Because
Mm-hmm.
then first you need to focus again on your room, on all the stuff, and then like you're like 3 or 4 year days out of the habit working on the task that you had before. So that can be quite tricky, especially when you are working on things like on building a company or building a
Mm-hmm.
business versus you're just maintaining something and you're doing anyways the same work every day.
Yeah.
So I think that is a huge problem for nomads who are like entrepreneurs, that
Mm-hmm.
they make it for themselves like 3 times more difficult to build a business versus just being based in one place.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is just general productivity, which also requires kind of the habits that you need to have. And like, for example, when I'm here in Germany visiting, because I come here a little bit more often. So I know
Mm-hmm.
exactly like, okay, I'm going to go in the morning, I'm going to that cafe, I will work there a little bit, then I will take a little walk. Pretty much every day looks the same. So this is very, very good to get things done,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not the most exciting thing, but it's great to get things done. And so this general day-to-day productivity, getting into that zone, and the productivity of actually building a business is
Mm-hmm.
very, very difficult. And that's why it's so important to, yeah, if you're serious about the work, to stay at least 3 months or 2, 3 months in one
Mm-hmm.
destination. So you have time to
So
actually enjoy the destination, but also build the business.
So yeah, so back to that challenge of keeping focus. So basically, the solution that you found, what I'm hearing is just travel slower, right? So you don't have to like worry about all this like lifestyle stuff
Yes,
all the
but
time.
it's not just about traveling slow. I think it's about traveling 2 months or 3 months, staying in one destination
Mm-hmm.
minimum. So
Mm-hmm.
that on the one hand, you have the chance to really discover the destination, and on the other hand, you have the chance to be productive. Again, if you do the same work every day, it doesn't matter. You can
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
perfectly travel and just be 1 week here, 1 week there. If it's every day the same, and or you work for a remote company or whatsoever, then it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
there's no
You know,
work,
you
and it's also perfect. So
you actually made me think of one aspect of our brain. Like our brain has this capacity, to put some things on autopilot, and they actually are moved into different parts of the brain to be processed on, at the background, right? And we have then our cortex that is in charge of like things that we need to pay attention to. And I think when you do the same kind of work, it kind of becomes automatic. And then now you can travel more and engage your, cortex on making decisions about your travels. But if your work requires all of the space here, all of the other stuff gotta be automatic, like your routines, they gotta be on autopilot. That's why, I can so relate to the fact that when I first started like this journey last year, September, from London, I'm like, I'm going to travel each month from different country. And I arrived to Mexico and I'm like, that's never going to happen if I want to build any kind of business. I'm like, so I'm just going to choose a place and going to stay there for a while until I'm sure that, I'm in a good space with my business. Because for me, I notice it so fast. Like if I have to think about where I'm going to get my food, where I'm going to get like my exercise, where I'm doing this, I just can't think of work.
Yes, because it is like a travel, like just alone the traveling is like a part-time job and it requires half of your attention, right? So it's good like when you're on the plane to think and to brainstorm on new ideas, and like the traveling gives you a lot of inspiration. But it's very, very difficult to actually like move forward. And you also need more time, right? So a lot of the nomads, they are like, okay, well, I would just want to do my 4 hours a day or 4 hours a week work. Yeah, well, that's good, but then you just don't move forward really, right? So
especially if you are growing. So and that routine part, I also so agree. When I have a routine and I know that at certain parts, of the day, certain times of the day, I do certain things. Again, I don't have to think about that, right?
Yeah.
I even find it very useful. I don't know if you find the same thing, to have the same kind of food, what else? Like the same gym, etc. But especially, around things like food, have it at the same time, have almost kind of like the same kind of meal. So I don't think about anything.
Yes.
What about yourself? Like, do you put those things into some routine too and try to minimize the decisions?
No, I mean, in the beginning, to be honest, I had no routines and I didn't really know how important that actually is. I don't think it's important if you don't have a lot to do, right? And you have a lot of free time, but it's important to have routines and find focus. To get focused, it's important to have routines and have things sorted and how to eat and whatsoever. But that is so difficult with every new destination because you don't even know where the next destination is.
Yeah. But I think also, if you like when you do have a digital nomad community, what it also does, it kind of like saves you time and energy in a sense that you can ask people, where do you get this? Where do you get? And that's actually how I got to know all of the things that I know about the community. I didn't just do research. I'm like, okay, I know these people. They probably know about that. For me, also good places to ask about those things, co-working spaces. You just go there, kind of like introduce yourself. Like they usually have WhatsApp groups, and then you can ask people what they do, where they get things.
Yeah. It's always an easy way to ask and to. I mean, the thing is, for example, when we arrived, also like with the community, new destinations, or like after cruise, sometimes we went with like 100 people to Rio de Janeiro at the same time, and it was amazing. And basically, you didn't have to worry about anything like to do because there were always like you didn't need to research anything. You're just arriving there because all you need to do is just read the chat, and you will find out everything automatically in the conversation. And some people are jumping on a helicopter and others are going for sunset and stuff. And that's like the nice way when you're like so well connected, being in these places when there's like a lot going on at the same time.
Yeah. And also, love the fact that when you like go to one place with a lot of people, you also end up meeting those people, you go working, you kind of live in the same space more or less, and you go work into the same places, go get coffee at the same places, shop, and you're going to meet people almost every day, and it starts to feel like home, right? So that's really amazing. That's why I love, for example, here, Playa del Carmen, it's like, because of that, it does feel like home. Back to your routines, though. Let's talk a little bit about your health routines. Did you find anything challenging sleep, nutrition, exercise while traveling, maybe also at the beginning and now, like how do you organize that part of your life to keep your energy high and health?
Okay, so I just started. So first of all, I found all of this very difficult. In the beginning, I was kind of traveling. Then in the first years, I was also kite surfing a lot. So that was a great routine
Yeah.
that I did until I started the nomad cruise. But like in the first 4 years, I was kiting almost like in kite destinations like 10 months of the year. And I really kind of I love that sport so much that I'm kind of like, okay, I don't want to do any other sport because that is my favorite one. But of course, I need to also find other routines, to stay healthy and fit and stuff. And but didn't manage this all the time. Like sometimes I would not, and I would pick up quite a lot of weight during my travels. But I mean, now I started a new routine, which is called 1 meal a day. And,
okay, I used to do it.
That works super well. I mean, for some people, they would say like, no, I'm not sure. But for me, it works. I mean, I'm just on the 5th day, so it's okay. But I see that this is working good, and I will do this. I'm eating healthy. But it always depends a little bit. I mean, that is also the case, right? If you're in Cape Town, you're surrounded by a lot of people who are going for dinner every night. You know, you're not. It's then it's a little bit hard to focus on just being super healthy all the time. So I think it's good to just have some skills to get back into shape whenever you need to, or to know and to be aware of this. But I mean, what I see in general for a lot of nomads when they're starting out, that they're kind of losing their health routine. Oftentimes when they go to new destinations, there's like a lot of people that I saw where like you see them again 1 year later and you kind of feel like, okay, well, you didn't really take care of yourself. And I think that is something to be aware of as well, especially for those who are starting out.
Yeah, I definitely think, that's something to be aware of. And for me, what I found also from a lot of other people who usually succeed, they just have rules around those things. We have rules around our work, and people who succeed with their health and fitness, they also have rules around that, right? If they eat out, then they're like, okay, this many times per week or per month, I can eat whatever, and the other times I do that with workouts, that many times per week, this is like my minimum, and you adjust it to destinations, or, sleep, like when can I stay up and when I'd like to go to bed most of the nights, right? As long as I think, also I heard from people that they call it non-negotiables. Like these are the things, they keep me going. And if I like start breaking them, then bad things will happen to everything.
That would be an amazing topic actually for a talk, for your talk in the future, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Because I think that this is super important. I mean, I think it's good. Right? Like, I mean, this 1 meal a day, for example, I'm realizing this at the moment. It's like, it's such a great rule, right? Because it's like very clear what you can do and what you cannot do. And my problem would often be that I kind of just, I mean, when you are like a nomad, you are kind of like driven by freedom, and I want to do what I want, whenever I want. And that actually is a huge problem for our lifestyle and for the way of how we're running our business. And so, I mean, there's also the saying that freedom is discipline, right?
Yeah, discipline is freedom.
If you're just very disciplined for like 4 hours a day with work, with healthy habits and whatsoever, then you have pretty much probably all the freedom in your life, that you will have enough money, you will have enough health to live, and you will have enough free time to do whatever you want, right? But it matters what you're doing exactly in these 4 hours a day, and what are your rules built around this discipline, to live.
Yeah. I mean, health business, if we don't have any discipline there, it's not going to go any good places. So
Yeah, we can also be lucky. So, but yeah, like in the long run, it only works with discipline and with yeah, and that is actually the next topic on struggles and things that are challenging for nomads. I think it is discipline because again, it's hard to be in routine. It's hard to stick to the habits. And now, if you're building your own business, it is already difficult to be disciplined, but it's more difficult to be disciplined when you're combining that with traveling the world.
Yeah, I agree. But you also, what I learned, as long as you take time to sit down and write down, like, these are my priorities, and they only gonna work if I do this, and that with that consistency. The rest kind of like gonna be okay. That also back to building business. For me, I, for example, have to put time off on my schedule, because if I don't, I'll just keep working. And long term, this is not a good trend. You're gonna burn out,
I mean,
right?
So another problem that I see with a lot of the nomads who are very freedom driven is that they are working on 5 ideas at the same time, and then they jump from one idea to the next one, and it's just not productive or not useful in any way. It's a huge waste of time. I think eventually it will be beneficial if they continue to do this, because they learn a lot. They're basically learning 5 different topics at the same time, which later on they can combine. It's a little bit what I'm doing now, that I've been diving into so many different topics over my last 10 years. And now I'm building a business around everything that I know, where I traveled to, what I learned. But I could have been like so much more productive or focused if I would, just divide, like, this is how I'm earning my living and this is how I'm spending my free time. And often we are just, into so many ideas, and it just gonna lead nowhere.
Yeah. If what I found works for me to address this problem is look at the day as just time unit, and it's like a big bucket of water. And you're like, okay, so this is the time I have to spend on sleep. So, minus. So we don't have that anymore. Now, this is the time I need to be off and rest and do my hobbies. Otherwise, I'm not going to feel good, well, and creative. So that's out. Okay, this is, my other priorities. And if I have one big priority in business, I'm like, okay, this gets 80% of the time. And I'm like, okay, and this is 20 where I can do, other stuff that my creative mind might go into. And looking at my day as like time buckets allowed me to dedicate the needed time to each area. And then at the same time, also not be worried that I'm wasting my time somewhere or spending too much time somewhere else. So yeah, that's what I found. I'm like, I'm human. We all have 24 hours a day. So this is,
But my problem is that I cannot focus, that I only have about 2 hours a day where I can be really, really focused and develop something new, where I can be creative and, write some new things or whatsoever. And once I've done this, then afterwards I feel like, okay, I really don't want to do this anymore. And then making time for this, like this, or for me, like the challenge is to have this really, really focused work and do it effectively, and then manage all the other things like messages, meetings, blah, blah, blah. And at the same time as well, and then still have free time to do the stuff that I want. Like, I mean, at the moment I'm more in work mode, but I know, like, when I'm back in Cape Town in 2 months, I will be more in the lifestyle mode again.
Yeah, I mean, different things work for different people. Yeah. I guess it just, for me, this idea of time buckets, I don't know, it really works. I'm like, messages only this time, only on these days. It's kind of like batching. I think Tim Ferriss also talks a lot about that, just batch your also different tasks, because then you're more effective, and then you don't waste time on switching tasks, right? And you don't jump from one place to another place. So there are all these, models, and I think things that can work. But you're right. I think every digital nomad needs to figure out how to make this lifestyle work if they want to continue that, right? Because if you don't take time to figure that out, I don't know. I think like what other people shared with me, it's just going to fall apart at one point or another.
Yeah, well, then they just stop that lifestyle after 1 year, and then they say it doesn't work, but actually they just didn't figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's actually a good run, and we talked a lot about a lot of things, and I don't want to take your time, allow you to focus, and also maybe have time off. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the nomad community, maybe that on the top of your mind, or your own lessons, challenges, etc.?
I think one more thing that is also very important. Now, we didn't talk about this, and this is different for everyone as well. And for some people, it's maybe not relevant, but I think for some people, it is more relevant than they would think, is that it's really important to stick to our roots as well, and to keep connected. Like if we have, our family, or everyone has got different kind of roots, or where they see it. It doesn't need to be a physical place, but very often as nomads, we get very distant to our roots. And I think that in the long term, like with regards to relationships and stuff, oftentimes the friends that we had before we started our nomad life, they are very, very important. And we don't really realize it when we get started. And I think that that's one little important thing to also keep in mind.
Yeah,
otherwise it's an amazing it's an amazing lifestyle. It's quite challenging, and I would also say that if you are getting started and you feel like, oh well, this is all overwhelming, like the whole nomad life is also a huge personal development journey and whatsoever. But once you figured all this stuff out, I think that the life that you can have is so much more extraordinary and interesting, and like there are amazing possibilities. But it takes some time. Like it's not like something that, it's not just a dream. It takes a lot of time and work and thinking, and also sometimes being by yourself, being alone, and combining everything.
Yeah.
Get like quite easy about it.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many, things you just actually mentioned that I think very, very important for digital nomads, but also for a human being. It just, when you're a digital nomad, like those roots, those connections, they are harder to maintain. And yeah, just, friendships, connections. One thing that I also realized after doing that for a while is that roots, relationships, connections to your family, to your friends, just like any other area of our life, it takes work and intention. So for me personally, I'm a person of schedules. And every Sunday I have time when I call my family and friends, and it's on my schedule. I'm not hoping to stumble upon the opportunity. I just put it on my schedule, and I call my mom, I call my dad, I call my sister, I call my best friend. It's like this list of people I'd like to connect with, because as you already mentioned, relationships and connections, they take work and commitment, and the only way to do it is taking proactive actions, right? And if we don't, usually things just dissipate.
I'm just saying that, yes, and I agree. And it's actually great to have this schedule, the way how you're doing it. But what I see a little bit is that some of us, we are very, when we get started with this nomad life, we get so excited about it, and we are like, I don't need all these things or whatsoever. It's not so important. But eventually, these are oftentimes the relationships you had before, they are much more stable and long holding than what you have or what you're building. And so I think that it's very important. It's very important for everyone to do it. But that's why I would say like it's important not to forget about it, even if sometimes you're
Mhm.
like, well,
Mhm.
I can do and be wherever. And then like sometimes I see these social media posts by nomads who are like now trying to educate their former friends about like how amazing their life is or whatever. And I'm just thinking like, well, it's not really that cool. It's not really. That we'll run into some problems with that in the future. And
Mhm.
yeah, just enjoy that lifestyle and what it brings to you. But um, yeah, keep the
And yeah.
roots and keep everything like it is.
Yeah, and also, last thing I maybe mention is that digital nomad lifestyle, life, it's not without challenges. So some people just really idealize it at the beginning, but it's like you're gonna miss your home country, especially if you've lived there the whole life. You're gonna miss like, things like groceries. I often hear people like, "Oh, I miss like the grocery
Mm,
stores, the familiar things, the place that I used to go to." And yeah, I think I just wanted to add, yeah, you're gonna miss things. It's
yeah.
not. Uh, yeah, go ahead if you.
Yes. No, I agree. Like it's
Yeah.
and also the thing is, so maybe one more advice I could share is like
Yeah.
that there's no perfect home base. So I think that everyone always is looking on their way, like to find the home base or to find the place where they are going to now live for their entire life or whatsoever. I think the more you travel, actually, the less likely you are going to find this home base
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because you just start to appreciate places for certain things, and you are okay that this place has got this to offer and this one has
Mm-hmm.
got this to offer.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that especially those, I mean, I can ask you, do you think that you will ever be living in one place for 10 years with hardly any travels?
I think now that I'm 35, I finally learned that I'm never going to say, this is what I'm going to do for any period of time in my life. It just
Yeah,
so many things change. I don't know, right?
exactly.
Like I might like this place, that place. I might like to go there. I change my mind. This is what human beings do, right? And I think the more you're okay with the idea that you're going to change, that the world going to change, and the easier you'll make it for yourself to adapt to what is, like the easier things going to go, and you'll enjoy the world and life so much more. So yeah, I don't have 5-year plan, 10-year plan, or whatever. I think that just
Yeah, exactly.
not.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that it has got a lot to do with like contentment, right? Like, it's not like we're always looking at the outside of places. Like, I need to have a place that is right on the beach that has this, 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 this. And I do think that there's not like such perfect place because we
Mhm.
get to know so many amazing places around the world that there's always something that we're missing. But eventually,
Mhm.
if we decide to settle somewhere or whatever, then we're not going to decide to settle there because simply this is the best place, but
Yeah.
because we are like, well, I know that there's all these other places, but I just like to have my own house here and my own
Mhm.
things. So, I mean, I would just say, like, I think for those who have been doing this for longer and who are now thinking to actually, they have enjoyed their travels and seen the world, and now they kind of want to settle a little bit. I see that this is kind of a thing what they talk about.
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
and I do think that there's not like the perfect place, in my
Yeah.
opinion, but there's a way that we can be content with where we are, and that we
Mhm.
know for ourselves, like we can build up these relationships and our networking, and
Mhm.
we know what we need to do in a place to like really enjoy living there.
Yeah, and I think it's like with ideal space, with ideal relationships, you don't look for those things, you build those things.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like you make a choice, and you then put energy and effort into that, and you develop into something beautiful, something you enjoy. The same for me, it goes for the house, for the relationship. There is no ideal anything.
Mm,
um
mm. Exactly. You just build
it's
it.
what
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. What you make of it, what kind of energy and intention and effort you put into that, right?
Yeah.
Um, there was something else that I wanted to mention, but about people. For me, it's always about people. It's never about, the beach, the best view, or the best, like, I don't know, whichever. It's the connections that I make in the place that make it whole, right? And I actually talked to a lot of nomads. We did this whole panel of podcasts, here in Playa del Carmen. And that's exactly what people said. It's not the place. The place without people, without deeper connections, it's nothing. It's like you have an empty postcard that you buy at any kiosk, and the one that is like signed by your friend or your family, and those two things, they have for you completely different value, right? The one that you can just throw away and you won't regret it, and that one, like, I have things like that I carry with me around the world, right? I might leave other stuff behind, but that stuff I'm gonna keep.
Yes, no, that's true. It is about the people at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you are staying longer in places and then you're building like this relationships and these networks with other nomads, that eventually some of them are leaving and then others are leaving too. And so it's very, very difficult. Like, for example, like if you are just connected with nomads, let's say you're moving to Bali, you have an amazing community there and whatsoever. Very likely this community is not going to last for very long, because the first person will leave, the other one, and it's like if you're the person who's staying there for a really, really long time, well, then you're kind of an expat. But even the expats, eventually they are moving back. So we just need to appreciate this moment and this time that we have here, and just be aware that the things, the way how we enjoy a place might not be the same in 1 month or in 2 months.
Yeah, and you're right, it is challenging, but I think it's also possible to build longer connections as long as you put effort to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Especially with the locals, because they are very unlikely to leave.
Yes, locals, but then also, making long-term friendships and relationship with nomads, and you decide to meet somewhere or, stick around in some place. It's all possible. And I think it's just, again, about the intention. And I think the world has never been more free and more welcoming to this kind of lifestyle and the ease of,
No, it is definitely the best time to get started. And I do think that it's really amazing, but it is at the same time a huge journey of personal development. But if you master everything, then it's very amazing.
Yes.
It's a lot of possibilities, and I would not trade this for anything else.
Yeah, me neither. And I think this is a very beautiful place to end our episode today. Thank you so much, Johannes, for again sharing so much of your experience and your thoughts on different aspects of digital nomad living. I'm sure people will listen and listen to this episode. Is there anything, well, not anything, but what are the places where people can go connect with you, learn from you, and learn more about what you do in the world?
The best way is to connect is to come to one of our events. I think that is
now how people can learn about that.
Yes, and they can learn about it on nomadbase.com, whatever we are doing. We have a newsletter there, and if they just sign up there, then they have a lot of chance to find out where we are going next. We're working on amazing things. We have a safari coming up. We have events in a beautiful place in Europe coming up in May next year. We're going to Cape Town. We are planning a lot of really, really cool things. And the way how to just find out about it is just to join the newsletter. And then we keep them updated, whatever is happening there.
Okay, yeah, and I'm going to link all that in the show notes so people can easily click and go and learn and join.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Johannes.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes.